Welcome to Sleepy Classic Tales. Tonight, I am telling you our own calm and gently narrated short version of The Canterville Ghost, written by Oscar Wilde and first published in 1887. Part 1. The Haunted House and the Fearless Family. The story begins in England, at the old estate of Canterville Chase, a grand country house surrounded by woods, meadows, and an abundance of stories. Among the locals, it is known as a genuine haunted house. For centuries, a ghost is said to wander its halls, a restless presence from a distant past. When the American Otis family decides to buy the estate, the previous owner, Lord Canterville, tries to warn them. With great seriousness, he explains that the ghost truly exists. But Mr. Otis, a confident and modern American, simply smiles and replies that he believes in reality, and that if such a thing as a ghost truly existed, he would either buy it or reform it. With that, the purchase is completed. The Otis family consists of the parents and 4 children, 2 mischievous twins, the older son, Washington, and the daughter, Virginia. They are practical, rational, and completely unimpressed by ancient ghost stories. When they enter the house for the first time, it appears beautiful. But there is also a strange heaviness in the air, as if the walls themselves remember everything they have witnessed. In the entrance hall, the family notices a dark, reddish stain on the floor. Their housekeeper explains that it is the blood stain of Lady Eleanor Canterville, murdered centuries ago, and that no cleaning has ever been able to remove it. Washington Otis kneels down, examines the spot calmly, and pulls a bottle of Pinkerton's Champion Stain Remover from his pocket. He rubs it briefly, and the stain disappears completely. The housekeeper screams, and a sudden gust of cold wind rushes through the room. For the Otis family, however, this is simply further proof that every problem has a practical solution. That night, everyone sleeps peacefully, until shortly after midnight. A sound echoes through the corridor, metallic and dragging, as if heavy chains were being pulled across the floor. Mr. Otis, awake and entirely unafraid, opens the door and sees a tall, pale figure standing in the hallway, translucent, with long hair, ancient clothing, and heavy iron chains bound around his arms and legs. It is the ghost, Sir Simon de Canterville. Mr. Otis calmly and politely says that the chains are making a terrible noise and recommends an excellent American lubricating oil. He places the bottle into the ghost's hand and goes back to bed. Sir Simon remains behind, confused, speechless, and deeply offended. Never in 300 years had anyone offered him oil. When he regains his composure and attempts to rattle his chains again, 2 small rubber projectiles suddenly fly out of the darkness. The twins have discovered him and begin bombarding him with paper pellets. Sir Simon flees deeper into the house, outraged beyond measure. This is not the kind of terror he had expected, but he swears that he will make this family fear him yet. Part 2. Sir Simon's desperate attempts to haunt. The following night begins again in icy silence. Sir Simon, deeply wounded in his pride, decides to use one of his most famous haunting roles, the Chain Rattler of Canterville. He polishes his armor, straightens his chains, and rehearses his groans just as he has done for centuries. He is determined to bring this shameless family to their knees. Shortly after midnight, he slips from his hiding place. His movements are slow, his appearance imposing, the atmosphere heavy like fog. He begins his familiar clanking, loud and echoing, expecting panic, terror, or at least respect. But as soon as he reaches the first corridor, a door opens. Washington Otis steps out, shakes his head slightly, and tells him once again that oil would help, offering to fetch it immediately. He places the bottle at Sir Simon's feet and returns to bed. The ghost freezes. He has never experienced anything like this. Still, he tries to continue, hoping to salvage his dignity. This time he attempts melodrama, deep, anguished moans and a chilling draft sweeping through the halls. He prides himself on the art of terror, yet from the twins' room comes another rubber projectile. They have hung up a sign reading, "Ghosts Not Wanted," with an arrow pointing toward a water pistol. Sir Simon is outraged and utterly bewildered. For the first time in his entire existence, he feels not feared, but mocked. In a final attempt, he retreats to the drawing room to plan his grand appearance for the following night. The headless footsteps. But when he enters the room, he finds yet another trap prepared by the twins. A rope stretched across the floor bears a note. "Traps for amateurs. Try it anyway." Sir Simon stumbles so violently that he lets out a shrill cry and passes halfway through the wall, tangled in his own ghostly form. It is the most humiliating moment of his entire undead life. Exhausted, insulted, and more confused than ever, he drifts back to his dark chamber. Never in 300 years has he encountered a family so unimpressed, pragmatic, and disrespectful toward his craft. Yet he refuses to give up. He swears that the next night he will try once more with all his strength. Part 3. Virginia and the Secret of the Restless Ghost. After several nights of humiliation, Sir Simon is completely exhausted. He barely dares to lift his chains, haunted by the memory of water pistols, rubber pellets, and the infamous butter oil bait. He withdraws, hides in forgotten rooms, and slowly loses his courage and dignity. The Otis family hardly notices. Only Virginia, the daughter, senses that something is wrong. She is different from her brothers, quiet, kind, and sensitive to moods others do not perceive. She likes the old house and feels strangely drawn to it. One calm afternoon, as sunlight streams through tall windows and the air is warm and still, she walks through the long corridors. The wind moves the old curtains as if the house itself were breathing. Somewhere in the distance, she hears a soft sound, not chains or moaning, but quiet sobbing. She follows the sound until she finds a small, forgotten room hidden behind a heavy curtain. The door stands slightly open. When she pushes it aside, she sees Sir Simon sitting in the corner. He looks smaller and paler than ever before, his face marked by sadness rather than terror. Virginia is not frightened. She simply sits down beside him and gently asks why he is so sad. Sir Simon looks up, and in his eyes she immediately recognizes something she understands: loneliness. He tells her his story, how he once killed his wife, how her brothers starved him to death, and how he has wandered the house for centuries, driven by guilt and trapped between worlds. Virginia listens quietly, with patience and kindness he never expected. He finally admits that he never truly wanted to frighten people, but only did not want to be forgotten. Virginia sighs softly and tells him that perhaps he does not need to spread fear, but only needs someone who listens. The words strike him deeply. For the first time in a very long time, Sir Simon feels something he nearly forgot: hope. He explains that he could finally find peace if he had the courage to pass through the gardens of death, a symbolic journey that can only be completed with the help of a living, pure heart. He asks Virginia if she would help him. She hesitates, sensing the danger, yet knowing that he means no harm. Calmly, she agrees to try. In that moment, Sir Simon realizes that she is the first person who neither mocks nor ignores him, but truly understands him. And that changes everything. Part 4. The Night of Decision. When Virginia accepts Sir Simon's request, the mood of the entire house shifts. It is as if a long shadow grows quieter, while a deeper seriousness settles in. Sir Simon explains that he can only find peace if someone with a pure heart prays for him, weeps for him, and hopes for him, because he himself is no longer capable of doing so. Virginia does not understand every detail, but she knows he is telling the truth. That evening, she disappears with Sir Simon through an old passage behind the library. The door closes softly. Only later does the family notice that Virginia is missing. Hours pass. Darkness falls, and the house suddenly feels larger and emptier. Mrs. Otis grows anxious. Mr. Otis remains outwardly calm, though his tension is visible. Washington searches the entire East Wing, while the twins roam the garden with flashlights, calling her name. But Virginia does not return. Meanwhile, Virginia experiences something entirely different. Sir Simon does not lead her through the house, but through an in-between space, a place that feels unreal, yet deeply real. It is cold but not unpleasant, dark but not frightening, filled with memories hanging like floating shadows. Virginia senses Sir Simon's fear and his brave attempt to continue. His voice grows quieter and more fragile, as if he himself barely believes he may find peace. At the end of the path stands a wall of silence, like a curtain between two worlds. There, Virginia does what Sir Simon cannot. She prays for him. She weeps for him. She wishes him what he never allowed himself: forgiveness. The silence breaks. A gentle light appears, soft as dawn, and Sir Simon begins to change. The pain leaves his face, the harsh lines soften, and for the first time, he appears peaceful. He thanks her quietly and fades away, not like a shadow vanishing, but like someone finally going home. When Virginia opens her eyes, she lies on the floor of a small, forgotten room in the West Wing. Beside her are a heavy old ring and a casket filled with precious jewels. Her family finds her there, exhausted but unharmed. On her face lies something new, a deep, quiet understanding. She simply tells them that she helped Sir Simon and that he is now free. No one fully understands, but everyone senses that something profound has happened. Part 5. Farewell and Peace at Canterville. The next morning, a quiet glow rests over the estate. Canterville Chase feels different, as if the house itself has been freed from a long shadow. Virginia sits at the breakfast table, pale but calm, while her family listens in disbelief to her story. Mr. Otis tries to explain it rationally, but when Virginia shows the heavy ring and the jewel-filled casket, even he falls silent. These objects are ancient, valuable, and filled with history. Too old to be a prank, too real to be coincidence. The Otis family slowly understands that Sir Simon was not merely a haunting or a legend, but a man who had been alone for far too long. In the days that follow, the atmosphere changes noticeably. No more clanking chains, no cold drafts at night, no distant cries. The entire house feels released from a heavy burden. A few weeks later, Lord Canterville invites the Otis family for a ceremonial walk to the old family graveyard. There they discover a single stone, half covered in moss, bearing a simple inscription. Sir Simon de Canterville, fame, guilt, and peace now rest together. Virginia stops before the grave, places the ring gently on the stone, and softly says that she hopes he found what he was looking for. At that moment, a beam of sunlight breaks through the clouds and illuminates the grave with quiet warmth, as if Sir Simon were bowing one last time in gratitude. The family returns to the house, and even the twins fall silent for a moment, not out of fear, but out of respect. The house lives on, but the haunting has ended. What remains is a story about guilt and freedom, courage and compassion, and about how sometimes a single understanding heart is enough to end a century of darkness. That was our calm, short version of The Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde, a story that at first appears to be a ghostly comedy, but reveals itself as much more. A reflection on loneliness, dignity, guilt, and what happens when no one fears what once held power. Perhaps you wondered whether the story is truly just humorous, why it still feels surprisingly modern, and what it reveals about Oscar Wilde himself. We explore these and many other questions in our companion book, Golden Pages, Volume 1. The link can be found in the description. Good night. And if you like, we will listen to each other again tomorrow.